Hi, I'm Clayton Mask, and on the Conquer the Chaos podcast, I talk with inspiring business owners about what it takes to build a great business and a great life. That means more money, more time, more control, more impact, more freedom. So keep listening to hear the tough lessons they learned so you don't have to repeat them. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Conquer the Chaos podcast. I am your host, Clayton Mask, and I have with me a good and longtime friend who is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to one of the most critical aspects of business, and that's sales. Welcome, Eric Lofholm. So great to have you here with me.
Hey, Clay, it is great to be here. And yeah, you and I go back probably about 20 years.
Yes.
We've done a lot through the years, and it's great to be here.
And by the way, you still look the same you did 20 years ago. I don't know how it's possible. So hey, let me just give everybody a little bit, and then I'll give you a chance to say more about what you do. And so Eric is a specialist when it comes to sales. He understands the art and psychology of sales. He understands the team building aspects of sales. He understands the support that's needed in order to make sales a thriving function in your business. And he understands how important it is that entrepreneurs apply enough energy and focus on sales. A lot of times what happens is we get some sales going and then we take our eyes off that ball and we don't keep sales as a really strong function in the business. So I've had the privilege of working with Eric in many different ways. Eric's been a customer using our software for many years, probably close to 2 decades at this point, early customer. And I've seen him teach and train many different people, many different entrepreneurs in different stages that they're in. So Eric, why don't you say a little more about what you do, and then we'll talk about the stages of small business growth and what needs to happen in sales in order to move from stage to stage.
Yeah, sounds great. I've been selling for over 30 years. I started my own training company in 1999. So I'm in my 27th year. I am passionate about helping people make more sales. And there is a lot of psychology to it. And there's a lot of business owners that want to do anything but sell. So
Right.
I love helping them. And I also love helping, people that are experienced salespeople that want to go to their next level. And so I live in that space all day, every day, coaching, speaking to teams. And so that's what I'm all about. And anything to do with increasing sales.
Eric, I think one of the reasons why you and I connected all those years ago is because I share the same passion for you about the nobility of sales. And that is not a phrase that people say very often. They don't think that sales is noble, but sales is probably the single greatest job producer in the economy. Yeah. Nothing happens. People don't get hired if we don't have sales. And so you can easily say, well, you got to have product. Well, you can have product. And if you don't have sales, it's not happening. Some of the greatest products in the world didn't ever get the company to where it needed to be because there wasn't the sales engine behind it. So to me, and by the way, I wasn't always this way. Although I kind of had a penchant for sales when I was a kid, I went through school and college, and 8 years of college sort of beat the salesmanship out of me and sort of got me conditioned to think that, it wasn't, frankly, I didn't take any sales classes in business school. I didn't take any sales classes in college. It was like this side thing that you sort of, frankly, the academic people looked down on.
Yeah.
And so I learned when I got into entrepreneurship what a travesty that was. And I've told this story before, but I'll say it. And I think this is why you and I are connected so well. In the early days of our software company, we were struggling like crazy. And we had decided it was my job to sell. And the other co-founders were building the product. So I'm selling, and I'm trying to sell, and I'm not closing sales. And I'm starting to feel really stressed because they're building the product and they're counting on me to make sales so that we can feed our families. And we were, at the time there were 4 of us, and we were taking home literally like $1,000, $2,000 a month each, just because we weren't making sales. And, with each week that passed, the other co-founders are looking at me like, hey, so you gonna start making some sales here, buddy? And I was feeling the stress. And I went over to my dad one day and just laid out like the emotions just came pouring out because it wasn't working, and it was on me. It was my job to do the selling.
Yeah.
And he listened to me, and I will never forget, after I literally was crying, it just kind of like all this energy came out of, I had the responsibility of these team members and my family, and we weren't selling, and it was all me. And, feeling the weight of the entrepreneur. Some people out there know what I'm talking about. And he said to me after I kind of laid it all out, he looks me straight in the eyes and he's like, "Are you exercising?" And I was like, "How's that going to solve the problem?" Did you not hear anything I said, Dad? And long story short, he said, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow morning at 5:00?" And by the way, that was the second amazing life lesson he taught me, is get up early and exercise. And from that point, he got me a gym membership, and we went to the gym. And each day for about a week or so, he would talk to me about the business and just let me just unpack the frustrations I was feeling. And after a few days, he said, "So tell me how you're selling." And my dad had a little bit of background in sales. He's a teacher, an educator, but in the first part of his career, he was in sales. And so he'd done a lot of the sales training out there. And I told him what I was doing. And at the time we were selling custom software, and it was very difficult. It was web-based custom software when people were using dial-up internet, not a real great model.
Yeah.
So I explained to him, I had all these leads, but they just weren't buying. They just weren't, I couldn't get them over the finish line. So he said, "Okay, well, let's do a little role play here." And I kind of said, okay. And I kind of uncomfortably did a role play with my dad as we're standing outside the gym one morning at 6 a.m. after working out. And he says, I get done saying, kind of my spiel. And he says, "Okay, you ready?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Sell." He's like, "You're not." And I said, "Dad, I am selling. That was my selling." He's like, "You're not selling. You're kind of telling people what they could do. You got to sell them. You got to persuade them of why they should do this. Do you believe in your product? Yes. Do you believe in your team members? Yes. Do you believe you're going to deliver value? Yes. Then show it. Show conviction. Show that you actually believe this." And I was like totally put in my place and realized I wasn't bringing conviction. I wasn't bringing energy. I wasn't bringing belief. I was sheepish, and I was apologizing almost that I was asking for their money. And my dad sniffed right through it, put it into my mind that I needed to make changes. And the next week we started selling. Nice. And it was as simple as getting my mind right. Now, I imagine for people out there who are in their very early stages and they're in the place that I was, they need a little bit of a psychology adjustment. They need a little bit of a mindset shift. You've seen this across so many people. What was it that I was dealing with? What is it that so many others deal with that prevent an entrepreneur from getting to the first 100,000?
Yeah, well, what you're talking about is the position that the entrepreneur is coming from. And if they're coming from, there's a stigma to sales in our culture.
Yeah.
You ask somebody, "Well, what's sales to you?" "Well, it's arm twisting. It's high pressure. It's manipulation. I'm resistant to it. I don't like it. I'd rather be doing anything but sell."
Yeah.
That's a position to come from. And so that creates a certain way. And what I teach is selling equals service. Sell from honesty, integrity, and compassion. Selling is about leading. Selling is about moving people to action. Well, that's a position to come from. And they're totally different. So I'm the same person. I can come from here. I can come from here. And this is selling equals service. I'm resisting sales. And it creates differently. So to me, the starting point is going, oh, I need to embrace sales. I need to come from a different place. From that different place, it's going to cause them to go, oh, well, what does my sales process need to be? What's my strategy need to be?
Yeah.
Well, they're going to be looking at that because I don't even want to sell.
Yeah. And we'll get to the sales process and strategy in just a second. Let's double click down on this where the place you're coming from. You're either coming from arm twisting or you're coming from service. And let's push a little harder on that, because what I've seen and what I know you teach is that when we're coming from the place of service and compassion and leading people to action that's going to benefit them, and we recognize that they're not going to be in a better position if they don't take action. They only improve their lives or their business or whatever it is that we're selling if they take action. Once we can make that belief firm in our mind, then we can come from that place. But there's still a thing that we have to do that is not just trying to persuade. You know, when my dad was like, look, you're not persuading, that was the first part of it, which we covered here. But then there's the part of like helping them see value, laying out for them how their life gets better because of what we have, and then actually stepping the prospect through the entire process of making a decision and buying. So can you talk about that, the deeper part of once you get past the psychology, but you're still a solopreneur, you're still trying to make those early sales, what is it that you've got to frame up for them to lead them to action to improve their lives by buying from you?
Well, what I teach is, I call it Sales Mountain, which is the outline of an effective sales presentation. So Sales Mountain is going in with a plan, and it has to do with the sequencing of the